And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at Summoner Wars 2nd Edition. Now, I'm reviewing it in a different video. In this video, I'm mostly talking to people who've played Summoner Wars before. What are the changes in this one? So I'm going to show you the changes and some of the differences comparing. I'm going to show a few of the original cards and the new cards put together. I want to be clear from the get-go that the two editions are not compatible. You cannot take a new set and play against the old one. The games play functionally very similar to each other, but there are some differences. Let's get into them. So let's start by talking about the dice. So these are not actually the dice that come with the original game. I replaced them with my own 6-sided dice, but they're just 6-sided dice. The new dice have different symbols on them. I like this a lot. The original, you would hit always on a 3 through 6. So 3, 4, 5, 6 is a hit, 1, 2 is a miss. On the new dice, there is a bow and arrow on 4 sides of the dice. So a ranged attack is the same. Still hits on anything except a 1 or 2, essentially. The sword is on 5 out of 6 sides. So the sword will hit almost every time unless you roll this side here. Now, there's also these magic symbols on here, this funky looking wavy symbol, and that also triggers things that will happen, which is on 2 of the sides of the dice. So if I roll that magic symbol on either side, they're on opposite sides, something will happen. So this makes the dice more versatile. They're also high quality dice. So for the new set, the dice and the attacking is better. Range is still very good, but melee even stronger. All right, let's take a look at the cards themselves. The new cards are slightly bigger than the original ones, but the biggest change card-wise is that the original ones had a very specific symbol. I actually really like how the old ones look. The new ones are but I know why they did it, because you'll now be able to mix different cards here and you won't be able to see what the backs are. The backs are going to be different. The art is, I never hated the art from the original one. I thought it was fine. But the art here for the new ones, I think, is tremendous. It's so much better. But the layout of the cards is going to be different. You can see it now shows how many dice you roll down here at the bottom of the picture, and it also shows you if it's ranged or melee, as opposed to having a little symbol up here at the top. And the summoning magic, I mean, they just move things around. Here it shows hit points, so there's 7 hit points, 7 hit points. Here we have 10 and 11. And folks, this is one of the biggest changes of this game, is everybody has more hit points. I mean, if we go down here, we look, for example, at the Rhino, which is in both games actually. You'll see the Rhino has 3 hit points here. It only has 5 over here. And the Rhino had more hit points than most of the commons that were in the original game. So that's a big change there. You'll also notice that I would say that most of the people now, even commons, will have special abilities, sometimes more than one, while it was very rare for anybody to have more than one special ability. So there's going to be a big change there. Also a change here with the summoners. The new summoners have their setup as a picture on the back, while in the original game it was an extra card that just showed you where to put everything. And of course, changing walls to gates and having the gates that are in your deck, changing the wall to the gate and having the gate that's in your deck be worth, the one that you start with has 10 hit points and then 5 after that. Here, the hit points are at the bottom. It makes more sense to summon things out of a gate than a wall, so that just for me makes much more sense. Although if you're like me, you're going to call the gates walls for a really long time. The events are better in the new one by far. They tell you when you can play it. They show you how much it costs, even if it's free, and they're just more easily written than the original ones were. So a lot of the changes here are semantic, but the biggest change by far is that there's more damage being done, but the common units especially have more hit points, therefore making common units much more useful. You will find yourselves not necessarily summoning all the champion units. In the original game, I played with all 3 champion units almost every time if I got them. Maybe 2, but at least 2. Here you might not, because the common units are able to hold their own against the summoners. Okay, the board is pretty much the same. It has that same kind of tan background. This is the original board. This is the new board. But where we want to talk about things is the actual order of play, which is printed on the board. The original one came with your summoner and was listed here. So first we have draw, was originally at the beginning. Now drawing is at the end of your turn, which just makes sense. Draw at the end of your turn, then you can think about your next turn coming in. Then summoning, which is still the first thing. Then originally, you could play your event cards only during this phase. Now event cards are played in specific phases, and it's a much smoother, better process for that. Then movement and attack, but build is in between movement and attack now, because everyone can build a gate. You have structures that you can build, but some units in the new set, the Polar Dwarves, for example, have parapets that they can also build during this time frame. Then attacking, which is pretty much the same thing, and magic, and that's pretty much the same. So there's some minor changes here, but I think it all makes the game more smooth. Also notice that you're keeping track of your magic here. In the original Summoner Wars, you simply just kept the cards that you got, and you would put them in a magic pile that you had, and you would spend them. Now you just have a draw pile and a discard pile. You even have a pile for active events, which they kind of existed in the first one, but this makes it more clear. Another thing that's new to the second edition, or at least it's fully fleshed out in the second edition, are these boost tokens. They weren't really in the first edition. And so these boost tokens, many cards will give you boost tokens. So for example here, if this gets boosted, it says for once per turn, if this attacks enemy unit, boost it. So you put a boost token on it. And this has +1 life to Lioness for each boost it has, up to 5 extra. So if the more the Lioness attacks, it can have, up to 8 hits, which is really powerful. Of course, it's also very weak to kill. Boosts will do different things based on the unit that they're on. There are some units that can boost them. Some factions, like the Savannah Elves, use boosting a lot. Other factions barely use boosting at all. And as I mentioned with the dice, there's also things that use, this one, for example, adds damage equal to the number of the magic symbols that are rolled. If you give someone a Hellforged weapon, they're going to take damage every time they do this. However, you get +2 strength. So these two things are adding some more variety and things to the units that were not in the original game. Now, as I said at the beginning, this is definitely a new version of Summoner Wars, which is great for people to jump on board. The original Summoner Wars, it's not like they fully fleshed that out. I have the box here, the Alliance box, and this is full. I have everything for Summoner Wars. I put it all in here. It's all sleeved. There's different factions. There's mercenaries. There's a ton of stuff in here, and it's great. I'm not getting rid of it, but I think I'd play this one over the first one anytime. Now, that's mostly because it's just cleaned up. If you don't like Summoner Wars, this isn't going to suddenly make you like the game. Probably. There's a few minor changes that are different and make the game have a different feel to it. And if you like Summoner Wars, you're going to like this. The biggest problem with Summoner Wars, as I mentioned in the overview, was the fact that the champions were really powerful. With the exception of a few factions, Jungle Elves, most of the time, if you have a chance, you're going to play a champion unit over a common unit. That is not the case here, and I like that. Don't get me wrong, the champions are still amazing and have really cool powers, but the common units can hold their own. You take one champion against 2 commons, they might be able to take it out, which was not the case in the original Summoner Wars. So that's a big change. It's also cleaner, the order that everything is done. And then the dice and the boost tokens allow more options. I cannot compare the deck building. In the original one, you had Jungle Elves, or whatever faction you're going to pick, the Fallen Kingdom, and you had those. They came out with an extra reinforcement deck. You could switch some units in and out and add mercenaries. This seems like it's going to be very similar. Each summoner has some symbols. I'm pretty sure you'll be able to put a mercenary in your deck as long as it matches one of those symbols, but I bet you there's going to be similar factions that can swap units back and forth. So I like that, but I also like the fact that just like the original game, you don't need to mess with any of that. You just want to play with the factions as built, you're fine. Summoner Wars is one of my favorite games of all time. It's a 10 out of 10 for me. Second edition, same, 10 out of 10. Do I like this a little better than the first one? I do. It's smoother, it's faster, and it feels, I think they did, I thought the original one was great because they made all the factions feel different. They feel even more different. They gave this stuff more special abilities, and yet it doesn't feel more complex. So I'm not saying throw away Summoner Wars and get this one if you have the first edition. I'm saying keep that one, play it once in a while, but get on board here because they're introducing this to a whole slew of new people who've never played it before. And if you're watching this for whatever reason and never played Summoner Wars before, it's amazing. Get this game and go watch my full review of it. Anyway, those are some thoughts I had on comparing the two games. There's pretty much no change they made that I dislike. other than maybe I'm not a big fan of the new card backs. But other than that, love the artwork, love everything about this. It's amazing. If you love Summoner Wars, you're going to be just as happy as me. I'm Tom Vasel, and this has been a comparison of Summoner Wars 1st Edition and 2nd Edition. You've been watching the Dice Tower. See you next time.